Hi, I'm Dr. Sean Lynch. I'm the co-founder and co-president of Better Elections Now. And this is my short talk on what is ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is a method of proportional voting, which is far superior than what we use. And it is on the ballot in Massachusetts this year. So I thought it'd be a good idea to put together a very short presentation about what ranked choice voting is. I have a longer presentation on proportional voting methods as a whole, which you can also take a look at. But that's a longer talk than this one. This one is intended to be fairly brief. This is an educational presentation by Better Elections Now, and you can find us on the web at www.betterelectionsnow.org. We are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and we have a rapidly growing YouTube channel that I hope you will subscribe to and check out. You might want to pause for a moment and just read who I am and why I feel I'm qualified to tell you about ranked choice voting. But in brief, I'm a lecturer in social sciences at my beloved Boston University. And I founded Better Elections Now with some students and colleagues and friends in 2016 to lobby the Electoral College to choose someone other than Clinton and Trump. And of course, that didn't work. But we are now a voter rights educational organization. And so this is one part of that. So before I tell you exactly what ranked choice voting is, let's talk about first past the post voting, which is what we use in almost every election in the United States. And that is a method whereby if there are more than two candidates running, one candidate can win the election with a minority of votes. And that minority of votes might go as low as 33, 34%. And what that means is that most people in that constituency wanted someone else. So first past the post voting is a dysfunctional voting system, and it should be changed because it routinely results in minority rule. And ranked choice voting or other methods of proportional voting are an easy fix. And you can see that states are slowly beginning to wake up to this. Maine adopted ranked choice voting a few years ago, and I'm going to give you an example of how that's important at near the end of this presentation. So I encourage you to read more about it, to learn more about it. There are lots of resources out there on proportional voting. So go read about it. So what is ranked choice voting and why does it kick ass? Ranked choice voting is also called the single transferable vote or instant runoff. So this is a method of voting. It is a style of ballot so that when you go to vote, what you are given is a list of your candidates. And let's say, for example, there are 5 candidates running for governor, let's say, of your state. And what you do as the voter is you rank the candidates in your preference. So your number one candidate, the one that you would really like to win, is ranked number 1. But if that candidate weren't able to make it, then you list your second choice as number 2 and 3 and so on. So in the first round of counting, if there is no majority, no one won more than 50% of the votes, then the candidate or candidates with the lowest vote total are dropped, and their voter's second choice vote is cast. And if there's a winner, if someone received more than 50% of the vote, then the election's over. If still no one has received a majority vote, then we go into round 3. It's a simple system. It's a wonderful system, and it ensures that the constituency is represented by the right people. Here's a chart from forwardbaltimore.com that shows you basically the very simple system of ranked choice voting. So what I would do is pause for a moment, just take a look at this chart. I'll be quiet for a minute and then I'll move on. So pause, take a look at the chart, and then we'll move on. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's pretend that we are voting in an election for the United States Senate. And in our state, there are 5 candidates running for the seat. Well, more than that, because there would be write-in candidates too. So you as the voter, rank your choices. Here's an example. So our sample voter has ranked the Green Party as number 1, Sarah McDaniel, The Center Party with George Miller as number 2, the Social Democratic and Labor Party as number 3, the Conservative Party as number 4, and then a write-in candidate as number 5. So let's say that in the first round of voting, the Green Party candidate, Sarah McDaniel, received the least number of votes. So she is then dropped. Our voters' second choice vote for George Miller is then counted, and so on until there's a winner. In this way, most people will be represented by their first or second choice. So it's obviously superior to first past the post voting. Now, let's just conclude by looking at a few real-world examples. Let's first go to Maine. This was an election for the 2nd Congressional District in 2018. The sitting member of the House of Representatives from the 2nd District was a man named Bruce Paulquin. I would imagine he expected to win re-election in 2018, as 99% of members of Congress are re-elected, usually. However, 2018 turned out to be a banner year for the Democrats. So, in the first round of voting, and remember, this is an actual case, this isn't an example, it's an actual case. Look at the bottom of the chart before you. This was how the voting came out in the first round. Paulquin won 46.33% of the vote. The Democrat, Jared Golden, won 45.5%. So they were separated by less than, well, I guess just about 2,000 votes, a little over 2,000 votes. And there were 2 other independent candidates. So if this were a first past the post election, Paulquin wins, election over. But it wasn't, it was a ranked choice election. So we go, because no one got over 50% of the vote, we go into round 2, which is at the top of the chart. The 2 lowest candidates were dropped. Their second choice votes were cast. And Jared Golden won the election by almost 4,000 votes. So this is a better outcome because people have more choice in how it comes out. Now, let's look at where they might have made a difference in older elections. For example, the 1912 presidential election. Now, this was unusual because it was a 4-way election. The sitting president, William Howard Taft, had been essentially handpicked by his predecessor, the Republican president, Teddy Roosevelt. But Teddy Roosevelt was very unhappy with Taft. And he tried to challenge him for the nomination in 1912. He lost. So Roosevelt founded his own party, the Bull Moose Party or the Progressive Party. And then the Democrats nominated the governor of New Jersey, Woodrow Wilson, and the Socialists nominated Eugene V. Debs. So it was a 4-way election. So in this election, although Wilson won the vote with only 41.8% of the popular vote, which means 58.2% of the population wanted someone else, he won the election. But let's consider for a moment that it might have gone differently had we used ranked choice voting, because there would have been a second round of voting. So the 2 highest vote getters were Theodore Roosevelt with 27.4% of the vote and Woodrow Wilson with 41.8% of the vote. So let's say, for example, that in round 2, you drop the 2 lowest voting total candidates. So that would be that you dropped the sitting president, Taft, and Eugene V. Debs. Their second choice votes would then be cast. So let's think about that for a moment. You have essentially 2 Republican candidates running, Taft and Roosevelt. And then you have the Democrat and you have the Socialist. Now, in 1912, what you must understand is, by and large, the Republican Party was the Progressive Party. The Democratic Party was the Conservative Party in this period. That doesn't change until the 1960s and 70s. So Wilson was, in fact, less progressive than Teddy Roosevelt in many ways, even though there was this perception that he wasn't. Okay, so let's pretend that this is a ranked choice voting. Well, it's likely that the second choice of the socialist voters would be Woodrow Wilson, by and large. But it is also likely that the second choice of Taft voters would be Roosevelt, by and large. So imagine if most of the Taft voters in their second choice chose Teddy Roosevelt. They're not going to choose a socialist. And why would they go for a Democrat when there's essentially another Republican running? In that case, we can speculate that Teddy Roosevelt would have won the election. And it's likely that the history of the 20th century would have gone differently had that happened. What about 1992? I remember this election well. It was a three-way race between the sitting president, George H.W. Bush, the Republican, Bill Clinton, the governor of Arkansas, the Democratic nominee, and Ross Perot, the independent candidate. Now, Ross Perot did extremely well in the popular vote, getting almost 19% of the popular vote, which is pretty amazing. But again, in a first past the post election, Bill Clinton won the election with only 43% of the popular vote. How might things have gone differently? Well, it's likely that the second choice of Ross Perot voters would have been George H.W. Bush, by and large. Maybe some for Bill Clinton, but I think likely it is that Perot took votes away from Bush more than he did Clinton. If that were the case, the election would have come out differently. And it is likely that H.W. Bush would have been reelected. I don't support that idea. I didn't like Bush or Clinton. I voted for Perot that year, even though I didn't really like Perot either. I never liked Bill Clinton. And George H.W. Bush, once I became an adult, I realized how bad the Republicans have been since Nixon. So this wasn't an election I really enjoyed because there really wasn't anyone for me to vote for. However, it would have come out differently with ranked choice voting, it is likely. So those are some examples of what ranked choice voting can do and why it's superior to first past the post. Proportional voting means that people are better represented in their elected officials. That's all. It's a better system. So Better Elections Now members believes that proportional voting and ranked choice voting should be adopted. And I hope you do too. I wish to say thank you very much for listening to my short talk on ranked choice voting. You can find us on the web, betterelectionsnow.org, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook and YouTube. Please do join us. I'd love to see you. Please email me anytime at betterelectionsnow@gmail.com. And these two phrases have made me a very happy person. Be harmless and blameless, and hope for the happiness of all people, as I hope for your happiness. Thank you. Have a great day.